All right, guys, we are live. Just bear with me for a second, guys, because I have to, what do you call it? I have to start sharing it out. So just bear with me. So if you're subscribed, just be careful. Just give me a second, guys. I'm just getting the link. So hold on. There we go. Let me just get the link.
There we go.
Hold on. All right, guys, we are live. Just bear with me for a second, guys, because I have to. Yeah, sorry, guys. Just all right, so I'm just gonna share it to Facebook and stuff. So just give me 1 second. I have to use my wife's phone because I'm running off the and then we'll get this going. My wife's phone's still a little she's got like an iPhone 2. You know what I mean? So hold on. I'm not joking. Maybe she has, maybe there's a newer one. I don't know, but it takes a while. It's not like as good as my iPhone 11, but we're getting there. All right, yes. Okay, hold on. A few more groups. I just shared it to Keepers. I'm going to share it to Correctional Officer Brotherhood. And then I'm going to share it over to live Correctional Officer Lives Matter. And then Blue Lives Matter. And that should be good. There you go. Now, guys, I'm just going to go back to the YouTube just to make sure. Here we go. All right, guys. So people are coming in. We have 3 in right now. So I'm going to put it on the comments to make sure we can read the comments, and then we should be good to go. I just want to make sure we can, because I need to get access to her comments. Hold on. Just using my wife's stuff. It's different. Oh man, let me see.
If you knew how that sounded.
All right, hold on. It's not gonna. Russ, can you see the comments or no?
I just left from this. Hold on, I'll tell you.
So I want to make sure we get the comments coming in.
Yeah, I can see that we got Daniel Sharp. It can be seen and heard in Texas. Hey, shout out to the great state of Texas, the Lone Star State there.
All right, bear with us, Daniel. We're signing in now. I just want to make sure I can get all the comments. So hold on. I'm using my wife's YouTube. She doesn't have the app installed. So the only thing here is I can't see the comments, Russ. So do you want to moderate too, Russ, or is that okay or no?
I can help. I can help, certainly.
Yeah, because I can't get the comments.
All right.
Hey, let's do this. I have an idea. Hey, Russ, can you hold the ship for a second while I get my iPad upstairs?
Yes, I can.
I'll hold the ship because I can get the comments from my iPad.
I'll give a shout out here to M. Kavanaugh. He's given us a couple of thumbs up there. Not sure where he's from. I got Mr. Chameleon 101. Hello, my fellow comrades. Baltimore County Corrections. Hey. Over here, you guys rock. Always glad to hear from our fellows over there on the East Coast. Which everyone here except me, for me, is on the East Coast. Except I think see if my oh, there now I was like Connie was just like frozen in place. You look very statuesque.
I'm just going with the flow right now. I'm like, this is an interesting vibe.
My monitor kind of just froze up, but it's back now. I've got Zepiel. Hello, party people. Yeah, I see Zepiel. He comments all the time on our stuff, man. Love seeing that guy here. So I wonder how far Anthony has to go to get his.
All right, guys, I got it.
There we
go. My
go.
wife's 1940 cell phone ain't going to cut it, so I had to get the iPad. So we do have some people coming in. I see it now. Baltimore County Corrections. retired Missouri State Kavanaugh. All right, guys. So obviously our dialogue is just, we're going to be taking questions from the audience, which is great. But first, let's introduce ourselves. So my name is Anthony Ganji. I'm the host of Tier Talk. Hi, everybody. Hey, Russ, you want to introduce yourself? Tell us what you got going on.
Everyone, my name is Russ Hamilton. I am the founder of Keepers of Chaos, a Facebook page for everything correctional, focusing on the professional side of it, focusing on the training, focusing on the content, focusing on the history. So that's what I'm about right now. Got 27 years in with California Department of Corrections, another couple and some change with juvenile corrections, and currently also working in the reentry field, as a matter of fact.
Hey, Russ, real quick, just for people that don't know, obviously, guys, if you're on Facebook, Russ does have a group that's called Keepers of Chaos. That's KAOS. It's a great group, definitely a good reason to join Facebook to be part of that community. But Russ also has a mentor program that's within Keepers of Chaos group. It's a free program. Hey, Russ, you want to just tell everybody a little bit about the mentor program you have?
Sure. The mentor program is just a feature that Facebook has where you can sign up to be a mentor. You can sign up to be a mentee. And so, you know what, if you're new to the field of corrections, or if maybe you just want some specialized knowledge, you can go in there and you can find some guy that's maybe been on a CERT team, or maybe some guy that specializes in transportation. You can pick their brains for as long or as short as you need to. And, you know, it's completely 100% free. You can go in there, you can find multiple mentors if you want to get, you know, kind of like a different view on it. Anytime also, if you want something, you know, a little less formal, which it really isn't, but, you know, come in there, and I'm always around and always going to steer you towards someone that I think has the right answers. Also, you know, I'll give as many answers as I can. It's one of the reasons that our particular forum, I think, stands out in a different way from some of the others. It's not just sitting around BSing each other all day. This is actually designed to help you with your job.
All right, guys, we also got Galaxy Donut just came in watching from Alabama, used to work in New York, and we have Daniel Sharp. We're going to get right to you, Daniel. We're going to help you answer that question. And also, real quick, and Mr. Chameleon, Leon Stokes. We all should know Leon Stokes, because remember when we had that party where we had the person from Alaska and just a bunch of us, Leon Stokes was with us. I know Connie remembers Leon. Connie remembers Leon. Hey, Leon, I hope all is well. It's been a while, brother. Thanks for joining us. We got to do that again, but maybe have some rules. The gentleman from Alaska was, again, maybe have some rules. Let's just do that. Hey, Connie, you know, if you don't mind, you mind introducing yourself? This is Connie's first time ever live. It's also her first time up past 9 o'clock. So, you know, but so we're
Anything could happen.
Yeah, crazy thing.
Oh my gosh. So hi, everybody. I'm Connie Aline. I'm the founder and president of the Civilian Corrections Academy. I come to you guys with almost 20 years of experience in corrections. That's crazy. I was only supposed to be in corrections for 2 years. That's what I told myself. I started on Rikers in 2000, and then I just like never left. And so that's tons of fun. And then I'm also a criminal justice professor for Monroe College, teaching the next generation of civilian employees. It's very scary though, when you think about these young people that are who are in this field of study, who are just scared about everything. I mean, so I am trying my best to make sure they stay grounded, and will someday be a safe partner to work with. But outside of that, like, you know, I'm having a good time here. I enjoy doing Tier Talk. I enjoy, you know, I'm hanging with the fellas tonight, so it's a good feeling.
Yeah, guys. And oh, by the way, we didn't tell Connie, this is an all-nighter. So have some fun. By the way, Leon said he's going to buy our books. I do have a book on the market as well. Inmate Manipulation Decoded. We got Connie's book, The Cages of Cocoon, and we also have a fellow author and another YouTube influencer, Gary York. What's up, Gary?
Hey, how you doing, Anthony? Glad to be here tonight. I've got 28.8 years, retired Florida Department of Corrections a couple of years ago. Did 10 years Army before corrections, military police. And I'm an administrator on the Correction Officer Brotherhood, and I write articles for 2 online magazines. I try to get 1 a month into those magazines. If you ever look at any of those online correction sites, I am writing a book called The Toughest Job right now. I'm thinking it's going to be out in May or June, but I'm fine tuning some things and trying to write about all the things we go through as correctional officers and what we have to deal with. And that's why I named it The Toughest Job. So thanks for having me on.
I'd love to have you, by the way. So guys, it's going to be fun. We're going to cover whatever questions comes our way. We have a few coming in right now that I thought we could attack, and we'll try our best to give multiple perspectives. Just real quick, before I get to Daniel Sharp's question, Exalfiel asks, does Anthony make any courses for the Civilians Corrections Academy? I just want to mention one thing about this. I was shocked about what I didn't know until I was able to learn what Connie had to offer. So I have learned a lot from what she offers, but I don't think her courses, they need much of what I have to give, even though we have partnered on just our dialogue and we both grow. So technically it's more of what we have learned from each other across the way, which I'm sure we find some way to put into anything that we do, even when we do our public speaking. But even before we met each other, her courses just have tons of value. And I don't think I had to add anything into that for her to, just have the knowledge that she has. Connie, what type of courses do you offer in the Civilians Correction Academy?
So really it's for civilian employees to be prepared. I think, we ask questions that you can't necessarily ask through HR because it might be inappropriate, right? So really, how do you identify your vulnerabilities? What are the things that you think about yourself that could make you vulnerable or make you a target? We also do a lot of focus on professional boundaries, how to have those conversations with the inmate population so that we aren't having inappropriate conversations. And if a conversation goes left, what do you need to do in order to de-escalate or get out of that conversation before it goes down that rabbit hole that you feel you can't get out? We also thankful to you and Russ. You guys did contribute to Civilian Corrections Academy because remember you guys did the contraband. I asked you guys for a video on contraband. And there is one that I focus on for civilians just because we bring stuff in our pockets, in our pocketbooks, our phones, all these other things. And I think there's just a way that we are not exposed to contraband. I know that I had the luxury of working with a lieutenant who would always show us, and I know Russ said that he would show, the civilians what they find in the yard and the different types of I guess homemade shanks that, I think we kind of take for granted because we just aren't necessarily exposed to that side of the security side of the house in that way. So we have quite a bit that goes on in the academy just to make sure civilians aren't kind of walking in blindly.
Yeah, I just want to say, obviously, in the course of us knowing each other, we've definitely grown a lot. I've obviously just having our dialogue. I think what we provide on the channel is just really what we have learned from each other, and we continue to evolve. And I also think that carries over into what you do as well. I think that carries over into what Russ does with the Keepers of Chaos and what Gary York does on the his YouTube channel and his book. Because at the end, guys, I guess in the process of giving out information, we also learn a lot. We learn by what each one of us provide, but we also learn by the intelligent questions that get asked our way. Because sometimes, we never think of asking these questions. And when someone comes out and asks us a question, we really have to sit back and really think what's the best way to answer that? So having a great community that doesn't mind giving us questions once in a while or topics to cover has also increased our level of expertise, if you will, level of knowledge, actually better. So the first question, I'm going to send it over to Russ, and then I'll we'll all give it a shot, Russ, Gary, and then Connie. This comes from Daniel Sharp. He's a rookie with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. And he says, to those with only LinkedIn and YouTube, what are some of the other channels to watch? Okay, so you want to go first, Russ? If you didn't have Now, hey, real quick, I know a lot of you guys are afraid of Facebook, and I get that. Facebook, a lot of people are wary of it, but there are really some good communities on Facebook that I would try to tell you, if you can get onto a Facebook account, join those communities like the Correctional Officer Brotherhood, Keepers of Chaos. And as I said, don't forget, guys, even my YouTube channel, the Tear Talk, is a community. We respond. I also see other people having dialogue on the channel. So there is a community that you can trust. But with that said, I'll go with Russ first. Russ, any other YouTube channels or any groups on LinkedIn that you may be a member of that has a good community or just good information for our rookies or just COs?
So I'd say, the primary one obviously is Tear Talk. I'm really not familiar with much else that goes on corrections-wise on YouTube. As far as LinkedIn goes, if there's anyone out there on LinkedIn, hit me up. I'm on LinkedIn. I've been posting more and more of my stuff and Tear Talk stuff on there, which is great. One that you can access through LinkedIn, though, is also Guardian RFD. They're starting to carry a little bit more in the way of selection. And I think that some of us here are going to be a little bit more involved with getting them a wider variety of content. So that would be a good way to go. So check them out, because they're definitely going to start growing their channel and some of the things that they're doing. And we're also becoming involved with some of that.
Yeah, Guardian RFID, guys, mind you, they have videos that relate to their business, yes, but they also have videos that come from their experts like Steve Menard, Greg Piper, but also we contribute videos there once a week as well. So it's more content that they also put up. Hey, Gary, what are some of the YouTube channels that you're subscribed to that have some correctional content?
Well, I try to get involved with every correctional site that I possibly can find. And of course, Tear Talk. And then I have Gary York, True Prison Stories. And Keith Helwig's has Cops. Keith Helwig's, I believe it's Cops short stories, corrections and cops short stories. Something like that. And I'm with him also. And I try to support everybody. I went out and I clicked on the Kansas City, on Facebook, Kansas City Department of Corrections, the Texas Correctional Officer Brotherhood. Just start scrolling through all the Facebook correctional sites that are out there. I write articles for corrections1.com. It is free, corrections1.com. Just look it up, Google it, and sign in, and you can read all the articles from people across the country, and you can hear officers from across the country answering questions about those articles. Corrections.com. I try to recommend everyone that's out there. I mean, there are tons of them. If you get on Facebook, put correctional officer sites and look at how many come up. And join as many as you feel comfortable with. And listen to what everybody across the country has to say and learn from each other. I had 28.8 years in service, and I'm still learning from things that you guys are throwing out there on these Facebooks.
Yeah, guys, the questions are coming in. So first off, we're going to get to everyone. I love you guys because I also see a lot of positivity. Wesley, much love from CDCR. I tell my brothers and sisters about your channel. Well, Wesley, thank you for that. You have no idea how much that means to us. I mean, I'm the fact that you just love us, but you find value enough to share it to the people that, are in your CDCR family. All right, guys. So the questions are coming in. But before, I just want to answer. I also go to Correctional Officer Lifestyles, Just Corrections with William Young. And I think that's what I have correction-wise. Let me see. Yeah, Correctional Officer Lifestyles. That's our boy David Smith. William Young with Just Corrections. We hit True Prison Stories, Cops/Corrections, which is Keith Helwig. Russ Hamilton, he's got some videos, but you'll see his videos on my Tear Talk anyway. And then the Tear Talk community. And guys, by the way, the reason why these channels are successful is because of the community. So the more we, interact on these channels, like, send some love over to William Young, David Smith, show them that you support what they're doing. And those communities really do motivate us. Okay, guys, so the first question comes from, or second question, or third question, I don't know. How about I just stop saying the number and just say question? The next question comes from Stephen W. Spencer, and he's hitting us hard, guys. So check out this question. So it's a tough question, so we'll go to Connie first. What? So, all right, Connie. So check this out. What are some of the factors that contribute to juvenile youth successful and unsuccessful transition back into society post-release? And how has COVID post-George Floyd impacted things, if at all?
Jeez Louise. So, I mean, I think from a reentry perspective, some of the biggest challenges are having social supports. Many of the kids, because of their age and because of some of the things that they've done prior to getting into the trouble, a lot of times they don't have the support when they come back outside to kind of help them be successful in that process of transitioning back into the community. I think one of the other things that they face is they're still developing. So you can't ignore that there's still that peer pressure out there where they feel like they need to try to fit in. And so even though they might know the right thing to do, sometimes having their peers around them who are influencing their decisions either way makes it very difficult for them to be successful. What was the first part of that question? I know I answered piece of it.
Well, no, I think you answered the first part, but can I comment on something with that first, Connie?
Yeah.
If that's okay.
Yep.
The other thing is, guys, I think a lot of work that happens behind the wall doesn't transition well out into society. There doesn't seem to be that connection. We tend to go above and beyond in what we do behind the wall, but then it's like we got to pass the ball off, and then when it's time to pass the ball off, nobody wants it. You know, I'm sorry, it just is what it is. I've been on that side. I'm sure that Russ, he'll probably be next to comment on that because Russ is actually starting to see that picture as we speak. But we can go above and beyond and doing what we got to do, but we have to make sure that what we do connects with the outside. So sometimes the outside, the public was all quick to say, yeah, we got to do more, we got to do more, we got to do more inside the prisons than we do. But technically, from my perspective, I think, like Connie said, that the public's got to step up. They got to welcome what's coming out there. And one of the things with COVID right now, because the second part of the question, Connie, was about how has COVID post-George Floyd impacted things at all? And a couple of things. One of the things that's my concern right now is we haven't really been able to have visits. So especially with juveniles, having that contact with the family, trying to build the family back together. Because don't forget, when it comes to juveniles, well, really, when it comes to adults too, you can fix the individual, but you also have to get the family involved as well, because you can fix the individual all you want, and then you wind up sending them to an environment that, isn't ready for that. So you have to try to fix the individual, but also fix the environment they're going back to, the setting. So for some of these programs, what they do, like a program called Engaging the Family, we actually bring family members in who program with the inmates. But now, unfortunately, programs are tough to do because of COVID, social distancing. We're not getting to everybody, rooms are limited, but you also can't bring in people from the outside, the families that will be able to take these programs with the juveniles. So now the problem is that even if we're able to program, which is still limited, we're not making that connection with the family who may be the one sponsoring the person going out or who that person's getting released to. So that's a big concern. Would you agree with that, Connie?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one more piece of that is that because they're juveniles, many of them are wards of the state. And so part of the challenge is having to navigate the state system to ensure that there's that continuity of care or treatment. So if there is some sort of care plan, treatment plan, if there is some job readiness, whatever and I think one of the other challenges, just to add to that, is that for a lot of those kids who, like, they're trying to finish school or GED, a lot of times that doesn't translate in the community. Some communities are really working hard in order to have that linkage so that the kids don't feel they got to start all over again once they get back outside, because that in of itself is a disincentive, But I mean, I feel ultimately, as much as we want to work and help the kids out, that there comes a point where they have to decide that the time for change in their lives is now. And it doesn't really matter how much work we do for them or with them. It is like getting them to the point where they want it for themselves. it's not so much just us kind of pushing the agenda.
Right. And I love that. And as I said, guys, when it comes to fixing the individual, it also, again, kind of got to also be able to fix the environment they're going back to. And right now, because of the COVID stuff, that limited interaction really does affect what we're able to do on a grander scale. Hey, Russ, any thoughts on that question?
Yeah, one of the things about working with juveniles is they are actually a population where you can see some of the fruits of your efforts, actually, come into being. That's not to say you can save even most of them. There's only a certain number that are actually salvageable, and that's really sad. But in the time that I did it, the thing that really seemed to make the most difference is we try and give those kids, a toolbox of things that they can use to actually better their life, and doing, the sort of, pro-social modeling in order for them to, for the first time maybe in their life, to actually have a role model that stands for something that's other than, women and drugs and fast money. Instead, we try and show them, what honesty, hard work, and being a meaningful member of society is about, because they've never seen that before. They've also never seen those other things portrayed or cast in a bad light when it comes to the drug lifestyle, the criminal lifestyle, and all of these, subgroups where, they have all varying degrees of different, victimization of society. So that's where you really have to, try and spend your capital that you try and gain with those kids in those areas to make that difference. If you'll search, if you're interested in a little bit more on YouTube, on Tier Talk, I did an interview with my old boss, Mike Arndt, on the juvenile justice system. And I think you find some more of that there, what he had to say. He was a great, great mentor of mine.
Yeah, guys, and you know what's great too, especially if you're in the system, believe it or not, a lot of the staff, we motivate their good behavior. So if they get like a GED or they accomplish something, maybe learning a trade, we actually encourage them by, telling them, hey, I'm proud of you. We try to keep them motivated. Most of the time, they don't get that type of recognition. They get more from the streets. They may get recognition for joining a gang, but not good recognition for, getting their GED. So you got to kind of change their belief, their culture. But once they start seeing that, hey, you give them these high level of expectations, and once they start to meet them, you can start to see that they become proud, and then they start to challenge themselves. I think most of the time they don't believe in themselves and they're afraid to take challenges. And I think when they get through that first hump and they start to see that they can get through it, then they take that momentum with them. And the next thing you know, you wind up having these juveniles that, they wind up accomplishing great things behind the wall that they're able to transition into the outside. But again, it starts with the right mindset and the right support. And then once you're able to do that, I'm going to also say that right mindset, the beliefs that you instill in that individual also has to be carried out to the family, which means that if they're the cause of that culture shift, if they're the cause of that, that belief system, then they have to change, because that person is going to wind up going back, and all the hard work that we put behind the wall, it's fruitless at that point, because if they don't have the family support, you're going to see that person coming back and forth into the system. Hey, Gary, any thoughts on that before we get to the next question?
Yes, I was a juvenile boot camp drill instructor for our local sheriff's department. And what Connie said and what Russ said and what you said is exactly right. So I'm not going to repeat what you just said, but we had 3 phases, and one phase is when they first come into the boot camp, and they're rowdy, they're not used to discipline. But as we went to phase 2 and phase 3, you could see them grow. You could see them be proud. We had GED program. We had substance abuse programs. We had family night, which was really nice to see. And what was sad to see was when no one showed up to come see the juvenile. Then you knew, we don't have anybody at home backing up this juvenile. And to make a long story short, in phase 3, I had a cadet come up to me and ask permission to speak. And we spoke, and I spoke to him for quite a while that night. He said, I'm scared. I'm passing the program. I'm going to be out in 3 or 4 days. and I'm going to graduate this boot camp program. But my mom and dad have been in and out of prison, and my uncle sells drugs. So there you go. All you folks who just mentioned, the family that they go home to is very important. He was telling me in confidence that he was scared to go home because he might revert back to the same activity he was in before that got him in the boot camp. And by the way, the boot camp was county jail. This was the next step to keep them out of prison. If they did not pass this boot camp, they might end up in prison. We were trying to save a lot of these juveniles, but everything is right. Some of them went from nothing to proud young men. Not a lot of them made it. I think Russ said some of them are not salvageable. That's very true. Some of them ended up back in our county courthouse, and some of them came back with a baby and a wife and said, look, drill instructor, I've got a job, I've got a wife, and I got a child. So, it and as Connie said, it depends on that juvenile. When is it time to change my life and get away from the bad things?
Yeah, before we get to Tyler's question, the gentleman, Stephen, did have a follow-up. He goes, thank you all for answering the question. To follow up, Connie mentioned there are some communities that are providing those linkages. Do you know of any that are or should be exemplars for others? How are they organized? I can touch on this just briefly, and then if Connie has something, she can. I know we get a lot of volunteers that go to that work at the prisons, and a lot of them are connected to ministries. So for the ones that if you're interested, I don't know where you're at, Stephen, but if you call the facilities, find out who volunteers for them, especially the ones that volunteer for chaplaincy services. And a lot of them do connect to services for these individuals on the streets because they want to continue their path. So I've seen a lot of the churches, especially these local ministries, that volunteer in the prison and then are there for the inmate once they get released. I mean, going so far as if the inmate's homeless, picking them up and taking them to some form of shelter. They try to help the inmate transition. So I definitely know, if you can, look up the different services that volunteer for the prisons and see, especially the ones for the religious side, and see who they have, because some of them do come from specific organizations. Some are individuals, but some do represent a church or an organization that will help the inmate transition, especially if they don't have the proper support. Connie, you have anything else on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I know they have like Fortune Society and they have Volunteers of America. They have like quite a few programs out there. You really just got to do a quick Google search to see what's available in your area as far as like transitional services, because they do exist. I think the biggest challenge is that because resources are scarce, it's the availability to accept new intakes.
Yeah, and guys, especially now with COVID, that may have stopped a lot of the resources that we have out there, because again, a lot of the prisons aren't letting volunteers come in because of COVID. So we're losing a little bit of that connection, like even what Connie said, especially with the intake, the new people coming in. So Tyler's question, we'll go to Gary first, if that's okay. Tyler says, how do you deal with coworkers talking about other coworkers behind their back? Do you call them out?
Tyler, is it Tyler you said?
Tyler? Yeah, Tyler. Mm-hmm.
Hey, Tyler, I would definitely call them out, but listen, I would go to them personally. I wouldn't run up the chain of command right away. I would say, hey, I want to talk to you. I want to ask you why you're saying this about me. This is not right. Why don't you come to me first, speak with me, find out if it's true, because everybody knows the worst thing in corrections, and unfortunately it happens in corrections. The worst thing in corrections is rumors getting started about you by people who know nothing about you or have not got all the facts straight. Now, if you've ever done one of those classroom scenarios where you put 9 people in the hallway and you tell one person a story, by the time it gets to the 10th person, the story is so messed up and untrue. That's what happens with rumors. And I would just ask the person to please stop. Now, if the person does not stop talking about you behind your back, my personal opinion is it's time to start going up the chain of command and say, hey, I need something done about this.
Yeah, guys, you got to realize something. The only people that benefit from that are going to be the inmates. The inmates want to see that divide. So a lot of the times the inmates will play into it. So the best thing first is, like what Gary says, talk to the person, see if that is the case. Sometimes the moment you let that person know, hey, I heard you said some things, usually I would like to think they're going to stop because you kind of called them out, because the cowards that talk about you behind your back, once they know that then they don't know who they can trust in their circle, because obviously someone in their circle leaked it out. But one thing I will say is that in corrections, we have no place for gossip, because at the end, gossip kills morale. It separates us. And the only people that take advantage of that are the inmates, because they're going to know the gossip. They're going to know exactly what's being said about that individual. And when Gary says the reason why you may have to bring it up to the supervisor is because that's information that could probably make it to the population that you don't want out there. That's something that has to be controlled. And that supervisor needs to go back to the people that are unprofessional and straighten them out. Because again, the inmates need to see us together, not apart. And eventually, as that gossip starts, or that whatever it is, that backstabbing goes, it's going to be hard to hide that. The inmates, you're going to see that in our body language. They're going to see it. And in the end, they're going to kind of just keep on digging the wedge until eventually we wind up getting manipulated. I mean, that's the truth. Russ, what's your thoughts on that question, Russ? Have you ever anybody talk about you behind your back?
Well, of course, I've had lots talk behind my back, but I think I really tackle from more the perspective of this particular question about just the culture that's there, that feels like it's fair game to talk about anyone behind their back. The one thing that you really want to do in a professional culture is head that off. What you want to do is you want to be the person to emulate, the person that says, hey, you know what, guys? That's a bunch of water cooler BS right there. We don't know how it is for sure. And ultimately, this is bad for the morale around here. It's bad to be whispering about it in a position where maybe inmates can hear and do something to leverage it, God forbid. So rather than look at it, as if someone was talking about me personally, I look at it more as just what is the culture there, and what is the culture that is, and what is the culture that we want to have in that particular environment. Always go for the culture that, shuns away from that and really wants to accentuate the good.
I agree with that. And trust and believe, guys, we need more of us working together than doing shit that's divisive. If you have a problem with somebody, try to work it out, try to talk to them, see what the issues are, and then settle it. Don't be doing that thing behind their backs, because at the end, the only benefit from that, again, is the population. Hey, Connie, what's your thoughts on staff that does that?
I mean, listen, I feel like at the end of the day, staff are going to talk about you anyway, right? I mean, I feel like you give it as much power as you want it to have, right? If you don't feed the machine, you don't necessarily give it power in that sense. Yes, I think that there are things that just need to be nipped at the bud and addressed so that it doesn't become, something that could be used to divide and conquer. But I think for the most part, if someone's talking about you or you heard something, talk to the person, go to the person. And if you can address it that way, because I mean, what have we learned about mediation and, just conflict resolution, right? You deal with the person. If you're unable to deal with that person, you go to the next step, right? You go to a supervisor for guidance, support, whatever that would look like, depending on what the situation is. I mean, and certainly if it's something so damaging, then you're not going to hesitate to address it, right? So I feel like if it's something that's just kind of gossip, like you don't want to give it the power. But if it's something that is damaging and can create a situation either in the facility amongst the inmates or a divide between you and your colleagues where communication starts to break down and things can become dangerous because of it, then absolutely it has to be addressed head on.
Yeah, and guys, all we have is our reputation, so you need to protect that at all costs. Question from Leon. How do you motivate new officers coming in the door to stay in corrections and make it a career? Most don't want to stay because of the morale. I'll go first with this, and then we'll go Russ, Connie, then Gary. So we've touched on this before. when it comes to, let's say, just tier talk in general, we try to promote a profession that welcomes people coming in. We want them to embrace the rookies to the point where we continue with that family mentality, Leon. So this field of corrections, it doesn't offer a lot when it comes to money and benefits. I get that, but it does offer a bond that I hope can get us past all the superficial. Because trust me, I've even had offers to leave the field, and I've actually felt more motivated to stay because of the connections I had with the people I work with. So the best way to motivate people to stay in this profession is to literally want them to be in the profession. Let them know that you have their back. Let them know that you support them. Let them see you as a family member, because in the end, I think, I know, like with a lot of rookies, we tend to be standoffish. I get that we may not trust them right away, but they still need to be able to trust us. And when they come in, they need to see us as a resource. They need to see that, we're willing to be there for them. Plus, we also have to have a positive belief in what we've done, what we're doing. We can't, be negative. And then when these new boots come in, we continue with that negativity without even giving them a chance to experience, how they feel about the profession. So the moment they come in and let's say we have a bad day and we're quick to push that negativity, well, you're pushing at a time when they're most vulnerable. They just entered the profession. So now that negativity could become a foundation. And then we wonder why good people are leaving. It's because what have we done to keep them? So, and also with the academy, right at the very beginning, when the people are coming into the academy or beginning their career, they should be given a belief about the value of the work they're doing, about the importance of who they are in this profession. And then that value's got to transition out from the moment they leave to the moment they enter the facility. So the moment they leave from where they're being, where the training is being done, so the moment they leave the academy or wherever their training is, you have to continue that belief until right when they go into that correctional facility, so you need like-minded people as those field training officers to continue that same positive momentum. But most of the time when it comes to losing these new boots, when you look at it, sometimes I say senior staff may not be doing enough to embrace them and keep them. What's your thoughts on that, Russ? I know this is an important topic for you too.
Yeah, there's everything to be said for welcoming those new people with open arms. If you go over to Keepers of Chaos, or I think it's even on Tier Talk, my video about telling people to quit and what absolute BS that is, you guys can find that somewhere. It's important that we take these people under our wing and that we do everything we can to help them develop professionally, On the other side of the equation, we have what's going on, from the legislature down through admins and whatever. The real formula for that, and I say it all the time, I've got several different videos that say this, is STEP, S-T-E-P, status. Everyone should have, that peace officer status. T, training to be able to keep that peace officer status. E, for equipment. Too many places just don't have the right equipment or enough of the right equipment. And last but not least, P is for pay, that goes along with all those other things. So, no one wants to be in the dysfunctional family, right? So, and although I talked about culture before, we can take it one step further and call it family, right? You don't want to be in the dysfunctional family. You want to be in the good family where people, sometimes they have their skirmishes and fights, but they get along and they look out for each other. That's what we want to cultivate, is that mindset right there, that it's family, that we can rely on each other, and that it's not dysfunctional and screwed up.
Guys, so far we got Chicago, Missouri, Texas, Baltimore, a lot of people in the house here. Hey, Connie, what's your thoughts on that was actually Leon's question, by the way, on how do you motivate new officers coming in the door?
I mean, so I think the motivation, I think we should start with the fact that when you come in the door, you should already be motivated, right? Like, you're starting a new job. This is a new beginning for you. There's still so much to learn. There's this eagerness, there's this curiosity, there's this figuring out like what my role is and what my life is about to evolve into, right? Because starting in this job, life will evolve, right? So I think that's where we should start. I think, yes, there is a responsibility of those who are already there to encourage you and to keep you engaged and to ask you questions and be available to answer questions that you have. I think just being received well is a way that we encourage people when they first start, as opposed to kind of turning our backs on them and sort of forcing them to either sink or swim, right? Because we know that that's dangerous. I think the other part of just really being there is showing that we're there for support. I think that is another way that people can feel encouraged and know, like, okay, I'm in the right place, because they are feeling as though they're supported. And then I don't know. I don't know that there's much else in a broad sense that we could offer. I think if there are specific things that someone's encountering, I think perhaps it's just being a resource, right? So maybe being a resource to, new folks really just allows them to feel more like they're a part of the team, because we are actually giving them the information that they don't have.
Hey, Marquise, congratulations. Put his recruit uniform up for the first time today. He's excited about the upcoming academy. I will say something real quick, guys. I've been following Marquise for a while. We've been commenting back and forth. That's a great thing about YouTube, guys. The interactions you can have with your community. It's a lot better than being on TV, because we actually can have those direct interactions and partake in the successes of the people who have found value in what we do, but also more importantly, have the courage to implement what we teach, because it takes more courage. I mean, we talk about it, but the courage comes from actually you. Let me give it a shot. Let me see if this works for me, especially in a world like this. So, Marquise, bravo. I can't wait to hear how far you go in this career. I can't wait to maybe share some of your stories. And I will say one thing: this person was a proud correctional officer before he even became one. So I mean, just the fact that he was part of our community and just sharing his story, it just humbles us that, when you have the success in your life, you come back to the channel and share it with the community. So bravo. Hey, Gary, what's your thoughts on Leon's question?
Well, Leon, I've always believed that when you come out of the academy and you step into the prison, it's all about your trainer and their attitude, because that's the first person who's going to influence you for your career the rest of your life. I remember my trainers from the state, and I remember my trainer from the county jail. For some reason, they stick in your mind like a drill instructor in the military. So you want to get positive trainers, people who are already positive, because you're positive coming in and you want to learn. How many times have we heard somebody say, man, I was trained 3 weeks by so-and-so, and he was so energetic, or she was so energetic and positive. And then I did my last 2 weeks of training with officer so-and-so, and he or she was just like, whatever, who cares, negative. New people remember that, and that negativity. Listen, all you new folks out there, don't let any negative person influence you. You stay positive and stick with the positive people. I think that's the best advice I can give you. Stick with the positive people, learn from them, because those are the folks that are always going to be around to help you when you have a question.
Gary, you're spot on. Hey, guys, check this out. If you go in with this mindset, like let's take Marquise, for example, who's getting ready to enter the profession, right? So Marquise, he's been following this channel for a while. So Marquise, I would like to think, obviously with the help from the channel, but mostly with how he was able to apply the information that we provided, he has this positive belief. He knows what he wants to get from this profession. And I truly believe he wants to be a professional that is going to soar all heights. So when he comes into this, into the facility, his training or whatnot, you're going to want to belong. We all know that, right? Especially when you go into, in a field like this, you're going to want to connect with people. But what makes Marquise unique is Marquise is not just going to want to hang out with anybody, or not just want to connect with just anybody. He has an idea of who he wants to be in this profession, and he's going to be able to seek out who's that positive influence. You know what I mean? He's going to be able to seek out the people that are best for him to get to where he needs to be in his career. So going with that positive mindset, like Gary said, have that vision. And then when you get into the profession, look for the people that you feel can help you carry that vision. Maybe like-minded people that treat this profession as serious as it should be. But as I said, it's a career, and you want to make sure you connect yourself with people that do it for the right reasons, and are just not miserable. We don't want that. Now, one of the things we talked about was trust. Now, I mentioned something prior. I'll go with Connie first on this one. Was that I did mention something, Daniel Sharp, and you're right. So maybe we could clarify this a little bit. By the way, great question. I love when we're able to say something and we can go a little deeper into what we do. That's why my shows are so long, because we just keep going and going and going. So we talked about trust, and I did mention that it may be tougher for us to trust the rookie, because you got to remember something, guys. We're in a tight environment, and we're cynical. But we do need to make sure that the rookies can trust us, and eventually they will get our trust. So the question is, talks about trust. He goes, you say we may not trust the new boots, but they have to trust and look up to us, which is senior staff. So, I guess the question in short would be is, how could a new boot earn that trust with senior staff? So, Connie, would you like to go first?
I can. So earning the trust is not something that'll happen easily. And I think if you come in knowing that, then like you're kind of going to do what you need to do in order to earn the trust, right? Like no one's just, so I would like to think that we would assume positive intent all the time, right? But that's not the environment that we work in. And so our reality is that when someone new comes in, we got to have a little time to see what their skills are, see what they're working with. Is this someone that could be trusted? Is this someone who's taken the time to learn the policies? Are they asking focused questions that would give us the confidence that, okay, this person's trying to learn, or this person did take in some things at the academy and now they're trying to figure out how to apply it. So I think when we can see that, the person is making best efforts to actually synthesize all the information, I think that's the point where we can be like, all right, well, he's at least on the right path, right? And so it's more of those exchanges that begin to build that confidence that like, okay, so we see what they're working with. And I think like that's what happens. It's not just going to happen the first day you walk in. I think that over time that confidence builds, the trust builds, and then, you get embraced in a different way. I mean, I would like to think we're all fairly welcoming, but, when you do become someone that like, hey, something went down and you didn't go running away, right? It's like, yeah, he's one of us. He was in there. I mean, there was a time I remember we couldn't find a syringe and it was like end of shift, somebody wanted to leave, whatever. And like, everyone was like, no, we're all staying until we find it. Right. And so even the new people, right. And we know something like that causes a lockdown. It's just haywire, right? No one's going anywhere anyway, but it's just like, when you get to see that we're all in it together, like trust begins to build even more then. So I just think that it's over time that trust will build.
Yeah. By the way, I don't know if we got a chance to give a shout out to Daniel. He just started too. He starts his first day Monday. But he just graduated too. So congratulations, Daniel. He's from the TDCJ. Hey, Gary, what's your thoughts on earning the trust?
Well, first of all, when let's give a scenario. I've got 10 years and you're a new boot, and I see that you're really eager to learn. You're a worker, and you're not complaining about the mediocre jobs. You're told, okay, now we have to pass out the caustics, go open the closet, pass out the mop buckets and the mops and monitor the cleanup. This job sounds terrible, doesn't it? But it's a very important job. This is when these things can be used as weapons and we have to monitor. You go out there, you do that and you don't complain, you help, you pitch in. And here's a big one for a lot of officers, a big one. Something goes down. You're a new boot. You're running to the call. Are you lagging behind, shy, or are you in there, elbows and knees? And I look to my left while we're holding this inmate who's attacking another inmate, pulling him off. And I've got the right arm and the new boot has the left arm. In corrections, that means a lot to me. This guy or girl is not afraid to get in there and get their hands dirty. As Connie said, it's building trust along the way. There's all kinds of little things that help you build the trust. One thing for you new guys that are listening, congratulations to those that Anthony talked about. If you come in and know everything, that's bad. Because if you come in and act like you know everything, it's going to be hard to build trust, because how can you know everything? You never worked in corrections. Listen and learn and ask good questions. I think Connie mentioned the thing about asking good questions and learn. And you're going to earn that respect by doing your job and being there when we need you.
Yeah, guys, don't forget, if you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. We're going to I'm trying to get to 20,000 by the end of the year. So we're close to 16,000. I think we're at 15,800. And also don't forget to like the video and share it if you want, because we're going to, keep the discussion going for a little bit. So if you want to just share it out a little bit more, that's great. Hey, Russ, again, I know, Russ, this is a big topic for you, because earning trust, that's pretty much what we need in corrections, because guys, trust is what unites the family. So, we got to have trust. But again, for a new boot trying to earn the trust of senior staff, Russ, what would you tell the new boot?
I tell them that, it's one of those things that you really just have to keep your nose to the grindstone. You have to, put in your time, you have to pay your dues and stuff. Having said that, there's a cautionary tale in some of this. A lot of these places where people are standoffish and stuff, that was a culture that was instilled. It was wrong at the time then, it's wrong at the time now. And it's just not the way that you should do things professionally. Having said that, the great thing about corrections is that you're going to be presented with challenges, right? Challenges just means opportunity. And that's the great thing that really gives you the impetus to grow and to mature and to take on that full mantle eventually of, the qualified journeyman correctional officer. The bad thing about corrections is that sometimes these challenges arrive from sectors that they shouldn't be arising from at all, which is, sometimes it's your peers, sometimes it can be your supervisors, sometimes it can be management or admin. And some of those things can be very daunting because we want to take pride in our job, but we see some people that are, really against you in some poisonous ways for no apparent reason whatsoever. But that too can spur you on to growth, because someday you're going to supplant those people and you're going to bring your own vision of what it's like to work in corrections with you and be able to make that place that you're in now, that might in some ways be toxic and poisonous, into something flourishing and more professional. So take heart and take heed. These things that you're going to go through, and some of them aren't going to be pleasant, they will make you a better person if you take the right lesson away.
And Poppy Pedrino says, the issues that he sees in the CDCR is many senior officers are leaving, and a lot of the new boots are not getting the experience from the senior officers. I'll say one thing, guys. There's a lot of knowledge, obviously, that you can gain from senior officers if you're willing to listen, because a lot of them want to share their stories. I mean, even right now, 20 years, 20, that's 40. And then let's round about another 30 on both of these guys. So you got 100 years right now, just the four of us, 100 years, 100 different, 100 years with many stories, many different perspectives. And we can't just minimize that because we're fresh out of the academy and we think because we know the new things that's going to work. Well, it's the old things that maintain things. The old things give room for the new things to come in. But if you don't get an understanding of the old things, then you don't have the foundation to apply the new things. So never disregard someone who's got 24 years experience because they have, What are they going to teach me? They haven't been in the academy for 24 years. Are you kidding me? But they've been walking this unit that you're going to now patrol. Now they've been walking this for 24 years. You know, their stories just have so much value, and I don't think people realize it until, you know, they leave. You know, that's why it's great to have a venue like this, or, you know, the Facebook groups or the communities, because, you know, now you have people with experience who are able to, you know, leave that legacy and make sure that all the knowledge that they've gained doesn't get lost. Raphael said Xephiel said a little joke. Remember we were talking about the people that think they're experts, just like we were just talking about now? I thought it was kind of funny. He said, well, maybe they know everything because they took the Civilians Corrections Academy. So, yeah, that was good, Ralph. Hey, I got a great question here, and then I guess we'll start with Gary first, and Russ and Connie. Where is it? It comes from, I want to make sure, where is the question? Hold on, guys, because now they're starting to, oh, here you go. It comes from Jeremy Torres. How do you deal with lazy coworkers that put work off on someone else? So I'll go first with Gary there. I don't know if Connie's getting tired right now because she's laughing at everything, but I will guarantee you she's the first one out today. I don't know. Hey, I know she likes this question though, I'm assuming. So, okay, Gary, what do you got, Gary? How do you deal with those lazy coworkers?
That is a big one. Mr. Torres, what's the name?
Jeremy Torres.
Mr. Torres, Jeremy. Oh man, that is a big one. And I think everybody that's been in this career has seen it, and this probably happens in every other career there is as well. The officers that always let you do everything. You know, you're assigned to a dorm with an officer, if you're lucky enough to have a second officer, and they just seem to want to lay back, let you do all the counts, let you get all the caustics out, let you get everybody to hospital, you know, to medical or to dental. And let me tell you, I have always been this way. I don't care what they called me. I feel that in my 28 and a half years, I was fair to everybody. But if somebody got lazy on me, I would go right to them. Say, hey, we're not alone here. We're a team. We're going to do this together. We're going to get this job done together. I'm not here to do all the work so you could just sit back and watch me and fill out the logs. Maybe that's all you're going to do today, fill out the logs. And I would, once I hit them with that and showed them that we're going to split this work 50-50 and try to help each other and be a team, 90% of the time, they jumped on board and got on the ball. See what it is. I did a video about this a while back, is don't let your coworkers take advantage of you. If they see that you're going to do all the work and never invite them to come help do any of the work, a small percentage is going to let you do all the work. So don't let them take advantage of you. You jump on them. You know, I'm not talking about cursing or yelling. Be tactful, but say, hey, this is a two-way street. We both get paid to be here, and we both have the same job, and we're going to share the work. And I think when you approach them face to face, most of them will jump right in and start working. You just have to get them on the ball.
Yeah, and guys, when it comes to the work being done in corrections, obviously the work is serious. You know, let's say searches and stuff like that. So if you have someone, let's say you're partnered up with somebody and they're not doing, let's say, giving the full effort on searches, you have to address them. Because if you don't, you're either going to wind up doing the double the work, or you're not doing the job fully. And now you're putting people at risk, whether it's your partner or whether it's other officers, other staff, the inmates. The point is, we don't have room for people that don't put up their fair share of the work. And as a supervisor, you need to be on that. You know, I know some people, they like to overburden the rookies because I know they need to learn, but are we really teaching them, or are we just, making them do our work because we don't want to tell the other senior officers that they need to step up? Because here's another concern, is that when we have the rookies that are coming in, yes, you want them to learn the job, but you also want them to, not be overburdened so they have time to learn the job. You don't want them to be stressed out because they're not going to learn anything when they wind up going from one job to the other, and then they're looking around at all the senior staff who's doing nothing. Now think about that instant report right there. Think about, why they're overburdened with work and, oh, yes, we're teaching them. Are we? And then they go look at all the senior staff who's got their feet up doing nothing. What kind of relationship does that set? I still have a great rapport with the one officer that when I was overburdened with work, the one officer actually asked me, hey, Ganj, you need any help? Can I help you? Sorry, guys, sometimes I'm over here because I'm reading the comments as I'm speaking, so I don't mean to talk away from you guys, but I'm trying to make sure I don't miss any questions. But the key here, guys, is that, yes, we want to give people work so they can learn, because that's a great way to, learn. But we also don't want to overburden them. We want to make sure that people do carry their own weight. Our rookies are not slaves. We don't want to be overworking them just because, again, we want to put our feet up. There should be value in the work that they're doing. And then we also, at that point, like Connie mentioned before, we want to be a resource for them. We want to go ahead and support them. But again, guys, if you're working with someone that's not cutting their weight, you have to make it known immediately to them. Hey, this isn't working. You got to start stepping up. You got to start doing these things. And if they don't listen, I think you do have to go a level up, because if they're lazy with the work that you're actually watching them doing, imagine the work that they're supposed to be doing that you don't get to oversee. Imagine all the searches that they're saying they're doing. Imagine all the tours that they're logging in the book that they're doing. And at that point, do we think that puts everybody else at a risk? Do you think that this person is not giving this search 100%, but he put in the logbook that he did? So another officer that comes in the unit will think, well, that area was searched because, Ganji said he searched it. Yeah, but I also know Ganji's work ethic. I know Ganji's work ethic. So did Ganji really search it? Hey, Russ, what's your thoughts on lazy coworkers?
Well, I think by and large, the easiest thing to do is I just tell them, hey, the sergeant told you you're supposed to hang with me and we're going to go do work. And I'll just, run them into the ground for a day. And then maybe they'll get the idea they can work less by doing more.
Yeah, that's actually smart. I like that idea, Russ. Hey, Connie, what's your thoughts on lazy coworkers? I know you had a little laugh at the beginning.
Yeah, I guess because, I think we get in our heads and we're being professional. And so we don't want to be confrontational, and we kind of allow it to go on for a little while. And then after some time, we want to reel it in because now you feel taken advantage of. And so, my first thought is, well, when it first happens, it should be addressed. I agree with Gary in that, you just have to speak to that person and say, hey, so how are we going to handle this today? Right. As opposed to this being sort of that one man show and you're sitting around not pulling your own weight. I think ultimately, everyone's held accountable, and nobody wants that situation to be that we didn't get to this particular thing that might have been time sensitive. And on top of that, no one said that they needed additional help, right? Because from a supervisory perspective, I would assume you and your partner are able to handle whatever's that's going on. I don't necessarily know that one of you are not pulling your own weight, right? So technically, if you don't say anything, you're kind of giving your partner the okay that you are going to do all the work that you're responsible for that shift. And, I would just say you don't have the luxury of that. And so there is expectation that you just speak up. It's not about being nice. It's just, we got a job to do. And, if I got to talk to you in order to get you motivated, then we will. And if you're not motivated, then that's when you kind of shift the responsibility to where it needs to be, which is the supervisor or whoever is the next in the chain of command to actually give the direct order to do what you got to do, because it's just not going to fall on you at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think and guys, obviously you could see why we're telling you have to bring it up to a supervisor eventually, is because if the person's not stepping up and doing the job that they're supposed to do, obviously that could relate to a safety and security risk. Hey, I'm going to toss this question to Gary and Russ real quick. It's about retirement. It comes from Chaos. Hello, everyone. Finally caught alive. I'm getting close to retirement. How difficult is the transition to life on the outside? And what should I be doing now to get ready for that? What's your thoughts first, Russ?
Well, my thought on the matter is I'm not really truly retired. I mean, not in the sense that I don't go to work each day. I had to find some other activities. It kind of does have something to do with corrections, but only kind of an indirect way. You know, I think that for me, I'm a workaholic naturally. And for me, what I just decided to do is I love corrections, right? So I wanted to take that love and I wanted to do something with it. And the way that I really decided to do it with it, that doesn't really have anything to do with the work aspect, is to spend time on venues like Keepers of Chaos, like Tier Talk, and try and pass some things on. You know, I think that probably, you know, the facilities that I worked at and so forth, I believe they were better off because I worked there. I think that's for other people to say, but I would like the whole enchilada across the country to maybe in some way be better by the time I'm done, you know, giving out a little bit of knowledge here and there. And that will be, you know, remain to be seen probably long after I'm gone, but who knows? But because I do love corrections, I think that, you know, there's still a place for it there. Now, having said that, there's a lot of fun to be had with all of the off time that I do have. I've gone to Disneyland a gang of times. I've, you know, spent a lot of time out there hiking and so forth. And so those are all good things too. Everything in balance though. In the end though, I am a workaholic. So.
Hey, Gary, I know you're a workaholic too. What's your thoughts on Chaos's question?
Okay, the first thing I would do, I don't know how long you have until retirement, but please make sure that if you're getting a pension or cashing out, or if you're in a drop program like we have here, make sure you get a safe and secure financial institution that you feel comfortable with. Talk to people that have already been retired and ask them how they dealt with their pension, their monies. Add up your bills now and find out from your human resources department or your payroll division. Say, hey, I'm going to retire in a year from now. What is my exact monthly pension check? And you know ahead of time what it's going to be. Figure out your bills and figure out if you have enough, because financial is the biggie for all correctional officers I've ever talked to. We've had some retire and have to go back to work because of the medical. You know, the medical is killing a lot of people. I'm fortunate. I've got VA from the military. A lot of my buddies who retired from corrections have VA, but not everybody has that. And find out what your monthly medical is, either for your family or single. Get all those ducks in a row. And then when you retire, you will know what you're going into, number one, and that you're safe and secure and your family's safe and secure. The next thing is, when you first retire, before you get any older, go do some things you've always wanted to do. You want to see Europe, go to Europe. You want to go deep sea fishing, go deep sea fishing. Get a lot of those things out of the way early, because look, I'm 62. I feel very healthy. I work on a farm. That's how I keep myself busy. I work on a farm with cattle, and I'm outside every day doing labor work, and I feel great at night coming in after doing the labor work. Some people want to do exercise and sports, get a hobby. And if you're interested in corrections, you can write articles. There's places that take articles. You can start a YouTube. You can do whatever you want. Just keep your mind busy, keep your body busy, mind and body and spirit. I hate to use the old boot camp term, but it's true. You keep those three things moving, and I guarantee you're going to have a happy retirement.
Hey, Connie, you have any thoughts on that, or do you go to the next question, or do you?
I mean, listen, I look forward to the day that I do retire, that I'm not working, but I also know that there is no industry that would prepare us for the world like corrections has. There's no more diverse environment, I think. And so for many people, when they retire, I've talked to people that are still trying to figure out, what should I do next? You know, And I feel like just don't let those skills that you've learned over the years go to waste. Really, there's other ways for them to be repurposed and transitioned into other environments where you will probably be a rock star, because no one else has had to do what you had to do throughout your career.
There's a lot of places that are looking for, a lot of schools that are looking for experienced retiree staff to teach. A lot of professors, they're looking for professors with experience. You'll be shocked what some of the colleges are willing to take and what they're willing to pay. And sometimes that's great. If you have this experience and you want to share that experience, do it in front of these students who later may be lawmakers. Guys, here's the funny thing, guys, and this is true too. A lot of these students that are going into college that later become these lawmakers, they're getting taught by teachers who never walked the walk, who've never been behind the wall. So the good thing is, if you have more experienced people teaching those classrooms, we could create a different perspective, when those people become lawmakers. And trust and believe, guys, these kids are getting smarter. I teach at a lot of colleges. Well, when I say teach, I speak at a lot of colleges. So these kids are getting smarter and smarter. So it'd be good if we're able to give them a perspective that's more objective, because I feel they're given a bit of a biased perspective. Hey, a great question here by Poppy Pedrino, who is coming from CDCR. This is probably the most serious question we got so far tonight. And I guess we'll start. Let's see. We'll start with Connie first. How do you get management to take threats on staff seriously? Kite was dropped on an officer, but instead of interviewing the inmate, they interviewed staff. Finally, admin gave in and weapons were found. Weapons were found in the housing unit of the threatened officer. Could have ended badly. So we'll go with Connie first, and we'll go to Russ and Gary. So what's your thoughts on that, Connie, when it comes to a staff member who's been threatened? What would you expect from management?
So it's been our practice to take everything seriously, just because we would hate for us to ignore something or to not take it seriously, and then someone gets hurt. So I'm not really sure, what systems are kind of minimizing the threats. But it's been my practice that if we got any threat against staff, that we took it seriously. So as a civilian, for me, like I would get the actual note, however it came. Sometimes it comes through, inmate is putting it in the box. So however we get it, but it would come to my desk. Once I get it, I'm contacting my clinic captain, because that would be my chain of command. And then that then gets escalated. I pull in the staff person, because they should be aware that there's been a threat. And then the warden gets involved, with the security division, or our operations dep or our securities dep. So it depends on, I think, how your system works. But for me, I've never been in a situation where we didn't take every threat seriously.
Yeah, what I would expect from our end as well, guys, is once you get the threat, obviously universal precaution. I mean, a lot of times the threat obviously could be just to get the officer off the unit. You could have a good officer that's doing their job, and the inmate could just maybe want that officer out. So the first thing you got to do is, if you can identify who made the threat, maybe the names in the letter, because sometimes you could have anonymous note written about an inmate that's going to do something. Obviously, the inmate has to go to immediate investigative housing until the investigative authority, which could be the Internal Affairs Division or whatnot, actually talks to the inmate, but then also talks to the officer or the staff member to see if there's any concerns that the staff member may have, just to kind of play out the validity of the threat. You don't want to rush putting the officer back in, because, again, the objective agency really needs time to do their investigation. But sometimes if this seems to be ongoing because you have a good officer and this officer keeps on getting threatened, probably because they want the officer out of the unit, you don't want to lose the momentum of what that officer is doing either. That officer could be, on their way to finding something. So, if you have to remove that officer from the unit, put in other officers who are just going to be as aggressive if they're looking for something. I'm not talking about personality aggressive. I'm talking about if you have an officer that just seems to be an officer that catches contraband, or, that's on point with their job. Make sure when that officer, if they have to get removed from the post because there is a threat and you have to kind of investigate that threat, put in other officers who are going to continue the momentum. Don't let the inmates think that they can threaten the officer and then, that officer's out, we're going to be living for a while. No, you come back just as hard again, with the next group that's coming in or the next officer that's coming in. But with the threats, you got to give the investigative authority a chance to investigate it and then present the evidence back to the administrator. So ultimately the administrator or the warden can make a determination as to what to do. But you definitely got to have that dialogue with the inmate if there is an inmate identified. If it's an anonymous threat and, I'm going to go kill this officer and you don't know where the source is, obviously you're going to have to, wherever that post is, the officer's on, you're going to have to remove them from their post. Again, you have the investigative authority come in. You got to interview the officer to kind of find out if there are any specifics that the officer can give you to make a determination as to where this threat could be coming from. But either way, eventually, you're going to want to do what you can to put that officer back on that post, even if that means you got to transfer, like let's say, I don't know which inmate it is, but it looks like the threat could be coming from one of the gang members or one of the blood, whatever the case would be. Then start separating them, start shipping them out. Make sure that at all times when a threat is made against staff, that the management establishes control again and gives that control back to safety and security, gives it back to custody. The last thing you want is for the inmates to make a threat and then think that they have control of what we do and our reactions. They may get that off where we have to take these next steps to protect the officer, but there's other things that we can do after that to make sure that the inmates know we're still in control of this house. That's the key, because that could be just a move to get control. What's your thoughts on that, Russ?
Okay, so the part about, what should happen, ideally in the unit, that's easy, right? Addressing all those different things. We've done it 1,000 times before. Having personally received some threats, and this question being about what's obviously broken at this particular facility, I guess there's no easy way to put this. It's time to start putting some real world consequences in front of those people. And you know what? Sometimes you just got to be brave enough to let the chips fall where they may. First off the bat, I'd be dropping dimes to IA. Second off the bat, I would be talking to my assemblyman or state personnel. Third of all, I'd be talking to other wardens at other institutions about what's going on there. Fourth, I'd be pretty much letting administration know that if something doesn't happen, like in the next 5 seconds, that I'm going to be calling reporters at the newspaper. And you know what? Sometimes you just got to be willing to take the hit that you might take off of that in order to straighten things like that back out. Because any administration that doesn't take that seriously needs to be changed out for a different administration.
Yeah, guys, and obviously that's something Russ is spot on. If
I could say one more thing real quick, I've been the recipient of threats before, and and I was always glad that I'd been warned. I was always glad that my administrators always had my back. Administrators that I even have respect for to this day. And so it really gets me, because it's serious when it happens. They're trying to take you out of the game because of your efficacy. And what does that say about the rest of the people around you? Maybe they're not being efficacious enough. So if administration is playing the part and, kissing up to what the inmates are doing, that's terrible. Sorry, I'm ranting. Oh.
Yeah, but Russ, you're not, because you actually just touched on something that's important. If management shows that there's a zero tolerance for threats made on staff, that's going to motivate staff to do their job, right? If I know that, yes, going after this contraband or, being like what Russ does. Russ is a contraband finder, and that messes up with a lot of games. That messes up these inmates with the games that they play. But if I know that, I may risk my life for this, but I know for a fact management has my back, that motivates us to be as effective as we can be. But when you don't have management having your back, especially if they're not doing the due diligence with the threats that, could be serious. You know, again, universal precaution, of course. But you know, then that makes us think, you know what, is this worth it? You know, is this worth it? You know, and in the end, management that doesn't have staff's back when it comes to threats, there's really no excuse for that, because ultimately we have the power to do whatever we got to do to eliminate that threat. And if we're not taking advantage of it, if we're not using all our resources to help that staff member who's doing their job to protect and serve, then shame on you, management. You're an embarrassment and you got to step out. You know, I mean, it's just, you shouldn't, you know, be in this profession. You're failing to do what your number one job is. In order for the officers to protect and serve the public, you have to protect and serve your staff, and you're not doing that. What's your thoughts on that? Gary York from an investigative position. Gary, what would be your responsibility there, Gary, as an inspector?
Well, number one, I tell everybody all the time, document all inmate threats. I don't care if they're minor or major. And you say, why do we have to document all inmate threats? Well, the question that was just brought forth to us is, what if management does not back us up? Management could say, there's no report, didn't happen. You know, you don't document it, didn't happen. So make sure you document all inmate threats. Go to your supervisor to turn it in. If management rejects your documentation, your report, make a copy of it and keep it. Okay. I'm sorry, that's not going against anybody. That's protecting yourself in case somewhere down the road that inmate does attack you, or a inmate attacks you. You have documentation. And number one, all these inmate threats should be investigated at some level. You know, if it's determined that it's an inmate threat, but no bodily harm was in the threat, there's people at the management level in administration. We have administrative investigators. If there's any kind of harm implied in that threat, well, I want a full-fledged investigation, and we want to find the inmate who made this threat, and we want to get criminal charges placed on them. We want to send that investigative report to the local state attorney's office, and management should push. You know, the state attorney calls the department a lot. Hey, department, we got this case, you know, we'll prosecute it. What do you want to do? Man, the department better be right on the ball and say, prosecute that inmate. And last but not least, this carries on in the street. You have to think outside the box. How many times is an inmate threatened, I'll get you when I get out? You better document that, and you better keep a copy, because it happened here in my town. The officer ran into this person at the gas station. The inmate was keeping his promise, folks. Luckily, the officer won in the battle to defend himself. And in the end, the former inmate was arrested. They even went back to the jail to get that report from the officer. The officer had documented the inmate said that. That's why it's so important to document inmate threats.
Yeah, and guys, anytime this could be taken up into the court system. So, you know, the documentation, you know, everything does carry weight as it gets higher up. And remember, guys, you know, literally say exactly what the person said. Don't say he threatened me. And even if it's like, yeah, because sometimes they'll mess with with how you want you to the context. So like if an inmate will say, yeah, I'm going to get you, you know, when it gets challenged, it will be like, well, I meant I was going to get them by calling my lawyer or call my family. Yeah, but when you said that, I wrote in the report that you also had your hands, you know, aggressively closed as a fist. You were angry, you know, so you have to provide the context that gives meaning to a phrase that could be rather ambiguous. And that context will go ahead and give the people that read it a better definition of what does it mean when the person says, I'm going to get you. Because most of the time they may say something that, you know, the lawyers are going to twist and it could be seen as ambiguous. But if you kind of define the circumstances, what led to it, the context, the exact moment, the aggressive manner behind the inmate, the elevated tone, add all that, paint the picture. So when you have a statement that could be ambiguous, you're leaning it towards where you need it to be. I got your question, Poppy. I'm going to come right back to you about the logbook, but I want to give this question to Connie real quick. It comes from the lady CO. See, recently I was involved in a use of force incident, and the guy was covered in vomit. Unfortunately, it got all over their uniforms. How do you balance protecting against pathogens and acting? I don't know, but I guess basically, what's the best ways to protect yourself from pathogens or bacteria, I guess?
That's a difficult one. I mean, once you're covered in vomit, you're covered in vomit, right? Like the most thing you can do is just get out of those clothes. And I mean, I know that some places have decontaminants. I mean, it's not like you walk into a situation and you think I need to have a hazmat suit on, right? Like it just doesn't work that way. So, I mean, there's not much that you can do other than get all that crap off and just try to clean yourself. Unfortunately, many places will not let you know whether or not that inmate had some sort of communicable disease. I know that there are times where I've witnessed our medical team just try to say, listen, go get tested, like give hints, but we can't necessarily say this person has some sort of communicable disease that you have now been exposed to. So I think it's just, yes, precautionary, our universal precautions, I think, always need to be in place. But once there has been some sort of contamination, the most I can say is just get out of those clothes as soon as you can, get yourself cleaned up. And then, if you feel that you have somehow been exposed to something, you go to your doctor and you get any prophylaxis or whatever it is that they need to give you to make sure that you are safe.
Well, guys, we're going to come down to our last few questions. We've been doing it for a while now, but I thought this was great. And if you guys are interested, maybe we could start setting up a routine so people are more, they know we're going to be having dialogue. Because I know we kind of do this at random, but it's when I can get everybody together. I'm going to go back to Poppy Pedrino. Now, guys, a lot of the questions that we ask, believe it or not, if you go to YouTube and you put in the query, like maybe something about your question and then put Tier Talk next to it, you'll see we covered these. I honestly believe that every question that was asked today has been covered, but it's always great to re-explore and always get that another person's perspective. So I just want you to know, if you guys want a further dialogue in, I'm sure you could be able to see. I'm sure we covered most of these topics, if not all of them. But this comes from Poppy Pedrino, and I'll go with Gary first because Gary brought up documentation, and Poppy Pedrino wanted to talk about, can your group discuss the importance of the logbook? So, I mean, Gary, as an inspector, I mean, that logbook, man, is do or die, right? That your job rests in what you put into that logbook, correct?
Well, I'll tell you, folks, please keep up your logbook. And when we have an investigation, let's just there's a suicide that occurs. Well, when there's a suicide in a dorm, we're going to gather every bit of information we can, not just preservation of the crime scene and collecting evidence from the crime scene and how did we secure the crime scene, who entered the crime scene, but we're also going to go to your dorm logbook because we're going to check who made their rounds and when they made their rounds. Folks, make sure you keep that logbook up. And I'm going to tell you one thing that kind of scares people. We're looking for honesty. Honesty will save you 99% out of 100% of the time. So if you're doing your checks, but let's say something else came up in the dorm and you missed your check by 5 minutes, that happens a lot in corrections. We're only human. There's a lot of things going on sometimes in these dorms. Well, I sure hope the investigators aren't going to go, we got you now. You missed it by 5 minutes. This person committed suicide. It's your fault. It better not be that way, because look, what you need to do is go in your logbook and put the correct time that you did the round and say why you didn't make it 5 minutes ago. We had a lot of supervisors that would say, hey, just write me a short incident report. Why you're 5 minutes late or 8 minutes late. you may have been feeding and there was a problem at chow time and now you didn't get to go do your rounds. It's hectic, this job we have. We have a lot of responsibility. Just be honest in that logbook, because honesty in the logbook can save you your career and let you have a nice long career and plan your retirement. But if you try to be deceitful and go back and say, man, I got to change this, I got to cover my butt, that never ends good, folks. Covering your butt in the logbook never ends good. It doesn't work. It'll be spotted somehow, some way, somewhere by somebody. Maybe not even the inspector, maybe your sergeant, maybe your lieutenant, maybe your captain. And then they've got to write an affidavit to the inspector. When I checked their logbook, I saw this, and this. So see, I just want to give you a few examples. I'll let other people talk now, but it's very important, that logbook.
Yeah, Poppy also wanted to say, thank you, Connie, wise words. That was from the question from before. Guys, there are some unique questions coming our way. So you tell me when you guys are good. You know me, but when you guys are good, don't, obviously, we'll end it. But there are some good questions that are starting to come in. And I know we want to finish up on the logbook. So I do have something I could say on that. And I also want to congratulate Rich Spurgeon. He just got offered a job. Oh, go ahead, Russ.
I just getting back to the logbook issue. So a couple of terms that you're going to hear coming up again and again is going to be liability mitigation and defensibility, right? And the logbook is getting ready pretty much to go the way of the dodo bird as we have, these big changes in technology coming along. And so the electronics of it, it's going to be much more, fortunately, this is a good thing now, it's going to be much harder to try and do anything with regards as to covering your ass on it. But the good thing about it is it's going to take less time and it's going to be more complete in the long run. So, companies like Guardian RFID, they're bringing this technology along with radio frequency identification tags and things that you scan and cameras that you can use and all those kind of things. So just remember that the reasons for those things, whether it's the old style logbook or whether it's the new stuff that's coming along, is defensibility. It makes your position defensible in court for whatever it is. It might be a suicide, like Gary brought up, or something like that. And liability mitigation. Can we prove that our officers were there doing the rounds? Yeah, we can prove it. There's less liability. There's less exposure to that, so that when a suicide or some other crime happens, that administration can defend itself. Because we need to think in those terms too, about shielding the administration, shielding the state, if you will, from exposure to liability.
Right, and guys, just want to congratulate Rich Spurgeon. He got offered a job, accepted for a job at a prison near his home. I have to do a shadow day next week. Been watching this channel like crazy, trying to gather information and advice, and I love it. And I asked if he had any questions, and I love when he said this. You just said it perfectly. Every question I thought of, I found the answers on the channel in an existing video. Very exciting, and thought I could maybe catch some last minute advice. Obviously, anything you need, we're here for you. Hey, real quick with the logbook, not to read it, and I think Connie definitely is probably going to want to touch on this too, is that I think, was it Exefiel? I don't want to steal his thought, even though we're on the same page. I want to make sure he gets credit for the thought. I just want to make sure it was him. No, Daniel Sharp. I apologize. Daniel Sharp. TDCJ installed thousands of cameras. Do not falsely document logs. Guys like Russ touched on too. Everything can be proven. One of the things we tend not to do, and I found this out, is that when officers visit your unit, do you log them in? When staff visits your unit, do you log them in? Sometimes we, trust our partners or the people that are visiting our units, and we don't log them into the book. And then when something happens, maybe the officer that, was in the unit that shouldn't have been, and maybe they did something foolish. Maybe we can't prove what they've done, but what I can prove is that they were in the unit and you didn't log them in. And that happens a lot. The reason why I'm mentioning that right now is a lot of cases with PREA, where you have officers that are doing foolish shit, and it's hard to prove what they've done, but they get the officer who didn't write them in the book. So that logbook is your saving grace. It literally is. It could save your job, But if you don't do it, if you don't write what you're supposed to write, you will lose your job. If you falsify, you will lose your job. Trust and believe, guys, that logbook is something that will travel all the way to the top of the courts. I know for a fact when we come to dealing with litigation, the first thing the lawyers from both sides ask, can we get a copy of the logbook on these specific dates? That's the first thing they go to, because that's the first thing that one side will try to credit and the other side will try to discredit. So just be careful, guys. That logbook is extremely powerful. I want to give this question to Russ. We actually did this topic too. We did. Russ has a whole video on this. Safest way to feed inmates who like to throw liquid from a bottle through a food port or a tray slot. You can't deny them their food. What's the safest way to feed them? Russ, you want to go with that first, Russ? Because you did a video on that, didn't you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hopefully your institution is giving you the tools that you need to take care of a situation like that. The first thing that you always want to do is you always want to try and approach that food port as you're going toward the wall that it's closest to. It makes it that much harder for them to turn the corner and get that spear out on you, as opposed to if you're going, more toward where the body of the cell is. The second thing I tell you, you know what, if you can bring in shields and that sort of thing to try and tamp that down, so much the better. And, last but not least is just general awareness. Get in there and be in a position to, key that thing, open it up, make sure that the inmate, before you open it up, that he turns those lights on, right? You want to get those lights turned all the way on so you can see things. If the inmate has anything stored around the food port, I called it the rectangle of death in my video several months back. Have him remove those items back. Look over at his sink, look over at his toilet. If he's got any cups, if he's got any old milk cartons, if he's got anything that could contain any liquids, have him, prove by pouring them out into the toilet that stuff's not there. If he doesn't want to comply with that, then come back, make a note of it. Yeah, you've got to feed him and stuff, but if he doesn't do those things, it's not safe for you. If it's not safe for you to feed him, then that's on him. And then at that point, you have to get your supervisor involved, because now we are going to run into some rights issues and things like that at some point. What I tend to find is that institutions have that covered. There's a policy for it. There's a procedure for it. And we want to start breaking out those old binders, because no one's seen this one in 3 or 4 years. And we start figuring out what those things are. It may get to a point, especially if the guy starts to refuse food or something like that, that he might need to be moved to a different cell on property control, and where they can go in and pull him out and weigh him every day, give him access to, certain foods, certain amount of liquid, so that we can monitor that. But make him comply with all those things that keep you safe. That's the main thing right there. And use your head. I can only think of so many off the top of my head, but knowing about what's in that cell, where it's at, what he could be using to throw that stuff on you, having the shields present. Always have a baton present too, if you're allowed to have batons, because something coming out of that cell, you might have to strike it. You might be able to use it to deflect or block. Take all those things into account. Be smart.
Yeah, guys, I put the link to Russ's video in here. Also, I want to add something else that Russ said. You can also put an order on his door or her door that says back of the cell or whatever it is. Basically, before you even think about opening that food port or rectangle of death, as Russ would call it, you put a back of an order, back of the cell order, which means that the inmate doesn't get nothing through that food port until they're at the back of their cell facing the wall. If they choose not to comply, then it's not safe for you to open the food port. So again, you put the onus on the inmate. So again, you put the order back of the cell or whatever you want to call it. And before you open up that food port, that inmate must be facing the wall at the far end of the cell. And then, you're able to hopefully safely do it. And if they act foolish, you should have enough time to pull up the food port by the time the inmate can get close to do anything stupid. Never take your eyes off them, of course. Let me see something here. All right, so this question comes from Augustus. Well, first, Gary, you have anything you want to say about food ports at all, or are you good?
No, I just want to say know where the inmate is at all times. They hide those contraband bombs in plain sight. There's all kinds of names for them: liquid bombs, poop bombs, stink bombs, but they'll hide them in the corners. And, you know, Russ covered it very well. He covered just about everything. You just have to know where that inmate is and don't get into a regular routine of day after day walking up to the food port, opening it up and sticking the tray up there. That's when you get in trouble. When you get into that daily routine and think everything's going to be okay, head on the swivel. But Russ covered gave a good coverage of it.
All right, guys, so we're going to come down to our last three questions. I just want to, one of the questions is going to come from Rich. So Rich says, and maybe I'll go to Russ first on this. So he's got his shadow day coming up, which we just talked about. He's actually going to be going to Indiana State Prison where Eugene Lasko passed. So I told him to send them our love. But he's wondering, this is just going to be speculation on our end. But on the shadow day, he goes, any thoughts on why they mentioned that my shadow day would be spent predominantly outdoors? Like, I mean, obviously you got the security checks. What do you got there, Russ? What would be your thoughts on that? I know it's just an assumption, guys, but we'll give it a shot.
Okay, so when you talk about where you're going to actually serve your shift at, especially in a place like Indiana, it's going to be important because you know that if you're going to be outside, that there's always, number one, a chance for inclement weather. Number two, this time of year, there's a 100% chance of cold weather. All right. So you're going to want to have those tools with you that's going to help you ameliorate that kind of thing. You're going to want gloves. You're probably going to want, I don't know what your uniform consists of. It might be a rain slicker. It might be some kind of snow coat. You're going to want a covering for your head. You're going to want, some maybe a couple different forms of, comfort with you, some things, some food, maybe, in a pocket or thing like that, because you might be standing out in an area for a long period of time without access to any real shelter or anything. So keep that in mind. Serving inside, that's easy. There's usually a locker or something for you to put a few things in, an officer station. You get to, dress down to whatever your shirt is or your BDU or your jumpsuit. But yeah, weather is a big deal. I've spent a lot of time outdoors in the pouring rain and pouring snow, everything else. So just keep that in mind. That's all about having your outdoor uniform with you. So if you haven't bought your outdoor uniform yet because you were skimping a little bit, probably want to run down and do that real quick.
Hey, Russ, but the question also is, why do you think they would recommend the outside day as the first day to shadow? I mean, I was thinking, actually, in the same line with what Poppy's saying, the perimeter, the security checks, the rounds. That also gives you an understanding of the layout of the facility. I remember when I was on my first day, they gave me a mobile. And within the mobile, I had to learn the facility, the layout of the facility. But what would be your thoughts on that, Russ? Again, total speculation, but.
Okay. I don't know and can't say for sure, but there might be a good chance that that what's going to happen is he's going to get there and instead of, being shadowed around, he's going to actually man an actual position because they're running short, and the particular posts that are the hardest to sell for overtime are the outside posts. Is what it is.
Gary or Connie, you have any thoughts on that before we get to the next question? Because I have two more.
Yeah. Russ is right. It could be those things as well. I think it could possibly also be for training purposes. Okay. If I put my trainee outside or to shadow on perimeter, I can learn, okay, this is H dorm over here. This is B dorm. This is C dorm. I'm learning the layout of the land. So I'm being trained from the outside in. So folks, do not ever be worried if they put you on the outside post. I did a video on this exact topic, on the importance of the perimeter officers. And your job on the perimeter is just as important as any other job in the prison. This is where escapes take place. This is where you see fights on the rec field and you call in, I see a fight going on the rec field. And if they're using it for a training purpose, you've got a great view of the layout of your institution for a mental map that you're going to need even when you're working inside on a dorm. Because if somebody gets out of your dorm at night for some reason and escapes, everybody should know, every officer should learn their institution with a mental map and know where everything is. So I think it's not a bad thing at all to be out there your first day.
Rich said we're so helpful. He's taking notes. I just said, hey, I agree with you guys. I really do think it's about understanding the layout. Connie, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I actually think that safety and security starts as soon as you get to the facility. And so I think from a training perspective, understanding the perimeter, understanding sort of the vulnerabilities that we have just before you even get into the facility, I think that's probably, let's give this person some foundation of where security begins. That way they're never taken for granted, what's happening outside as well as what's happening inside.
Yeah, Daniel's taking notes too. I'm like, boss, it humbles you. It really does. All right, Augustus. First off, before I answer this question, Augustus, are you still here? If you're still here, say you're still here, and I'll give respect and I'll answer the question that you asked. Let's see. I just need like a hi, Augustus. If you say a hi, I'll ask the question to the panel. But if you're not here, I'm going to avoid the question. So let's see if Augustus is still here, because I know everybody's curious about what that question is. So let me just see if Augustus is still here. We'll give him a few seconds. And then if he's still here, we'll answer the question. There was one. Augustus is still here, damn it. That means I got to answer his question. Okay. So, who do I want to give this question to first? Oh, okay.
Russ is volunteered.
Yeah, because I know this may sound crazy, but I was looking at Connie. But Russ, Connie. Actually, you should thank Russ.
Thank you, Russ.
Yeah.
Connie just PayPal'd me $5.
Yeah, PayPal. Oh, is that what you did? All right, so Augustus the Great Gus. Guys, there's two more good questions here after that.
It's too fast.
Yeah, okay, so here's Augustus's question. Have you ever, have a question. Have you seen homosexual activity on your watch?
Every day. So real quick, if I was just to have to explain the way homosexuality happens and works in prison to a complete neophyte, because all that anyone's ever done is see movies, is basically there's a whole spectrum there, right? And there are a lot of inmates inside the walls that is their hustle. And so they dress up the part of the female, and that's what's going on out there. And it's like any other activity out there. We try and stop it because it ends up in all kinds of bad things, because sometimes it can end up in rape, even though it's that person's hustle, right? We don't want them to get raped, but at the same time, they're kind of putting themselves out there. It makes it really difficult. The other things that happen is there are, forcible rapes on inmates that don't have anything to do with doing that as a hustle. There's just the whole gambit out there. I've investigated, these situations. There's people that are, compromised or blackmailed or any number of things out there, especially with the advent of cell phones now. You get someone in a compromising position, and then because it's known that they have some money on the books, but they kind of, have a little bit of an orientation that way. And the next thing you know, they're being bled dry. It's pretty common. And when it's common in the type of an area where everyone has some sort of, antisocial criminal personality disorder, it multiplies the victims exponentially. And Anthony's gone, so I'm going to continue on. So anyway.
One thing I would throw out there too is that you also have those people who are gay for the stay, right? And so a lot of that happens and we end up seeing it. I've seen it in male and female facilities, and those don't usually end well.
Right. And those people, actually can be very vulnerable, because what happens is, they have one persona inside the prison and a different one with their family. And so extortion and blackmail and, people that they met while they were in prison suddenly come and, are at their door and wanting to talk to them. And it makes for some situations where they can be blackmailed, they can be hurt, assaulted, murdered even. I've seen things like that happen. So, understand that it's common, and that everything that happens with it ends up bad in some way or another.
And I also, sorry about that, guys. My phone was dying, so I had to get my charger. So thank you, Russ and Connie and Gary. And I want to mention something about that. We're still on the homosexuality. I worked in both male and female facilities, so I saw more females were more open to it. Again, it's my experience. I witnessed more females. I'm sure it happens as much as in the male facilities, but it may not be as open or harder to catch. When it comes to PREA violations, if now technically, obviously we all know inmates can't consent, because again, I don't know if you're being raped or not. So universal precaution is no sex, right? But if both parties admit that they consented to it, the prosecutor's not going to pick it up. So therefore, it's going to turn out to be a not PREA. Even though you may run the PREA protocol, because you had two inmates having sex, we got to investigate it to determine if it was consensual. But if both inmates say that they consent, it's not going to be a PREA. Right. Because at that point, it's not going to be picked up.
Also remember, though, too, that it's not PREA, but also PREA has no teeth. PREA doesn't have anything to do with any criminal acts in and of itself. It doesn't define them, and it doesn't provide any sentences or any penalties. So the federal government says you must do this, and yet it provides no sort of penalty for that kind of activity.
Well, no, all PREA does, guys, is give us the guidelines to make sure that at all time we maintain the integrity of the allegation. We protect the victim, also protect the rights of the person that's being accused, secure evidence, whatever we got to do to make sure if there is a concern that it can get properly forwarded over to the prosecutor's office and whatnot. But if two inmates do consent and they admit to having consent to each other, then obviously the prosecutor's not going to pick it up, because, both inmates are consensual. Now, again, I know people are like, well, inmates can't consent. They can't. But having said that, when the investigator interviews both the inmates and they both say, well, I was good with what he was doing, and the other inmate says, yeah, I was good with what he's doing, you're not gonna have a case. What's your thoughts on that, Gary? Is that true?
Yes, that's exactly true. First, I'd like to answer his question this way. If you see two inmates engaged in any kind of homosexual activity, call in on the radio for backup. And, it's like going to a domestic disturbance sometimes. If they both consent, you may be going to a little domestic disturbance there if you break it up. But call for backup, break it up, separate the inmates, and write a report. If they both say it was consensual, then the state attorney's not going to touch it. That's pretty plain and simple. If one of them claims they were raped, now we have a rape investigation. We come in, we hope that when they went to your medical, we didn't get rid of their clothing. We bagged and tagged both sets of clothing for both inmates. We didn't let the inmates take a shower. We hope we didn't do that. Typical rape investigation, just like you would conduct on the street. And then we go through all the motions. We get the rape kit done and look for DNA evidence. Some of them pan out to be an actual rape, and we have gotten them prosecuted. Some turn out to be not a rape, that it did end up consensual, and you find out later through other evidence. So, but yeah, the key thing is if they both sit there and tell you we consented, and there's no case for the state attorney.
Right, and the inmate would probably be sent out to a SANE nurse, SANE, sexual assault nurse, to see if there was penetration of any sort. And obviously at that point, that will help the investigative authority, get the evidence they need to prosecute the rape, but to, get it up to the prosecutors so they could pick it up. Hey guys, I thought this was a great, again, guys, when you want to back up, there's maybe another question or two that I thought was good. And I'll start with Connie first on this one. And I think this is a great question. It comes from, where is it? Right here. Hold on, guys. Give me a second because I just had it and someone put a comment in and I just lost it. Where'd it go? Hold on. It's up here somewhere. When someone asked the question, the whole thing just moved up. All right, I'm going to find out who asked the question, but I know what the question is. How do you instill pride in the new boots? Pride for what they do, Connie. What would be your advice to that?
So, one thing I would say is that there's a way that you got to walk in and kind of just hold your head high because the work that you're doing is just simply good work. I think it's internally us building each other up and encouraging each other because the outside isn't necessarily going to give us the recognition you might be looking for. So that pride will come from people who've done the job, who, can tell you how much value there is. And over time, you will see, how your efforts, how your work has made a difference, whether it's making a difference in an inmate's life or making a difference in the industry. Those are ways that you end up building the pride. I think if you're looking for that pat on the back or that encouragement coming from outside, we just don't get that because outside is really looking for the scandal. They're looking for, and that's what they glorify. That's what they highlight. They don't highlight the good work that's being done behind the walls. So I would just say, just know that what you're doing is meaningful work and that pat on the back may never come from outside, but it's the people who you work shoulder to shoulder with who will be the ones to encourage you and remind you that the work that we're doing is hard work, it's meaningful work, and that we do make a difference.
Me and Connie are avid readers. Obviously, so is Gary and Russ. Me and Connie tend to favor the same books. We're very big fans of Robert Greene books. One is Mastery. Russ touched on a term journeyman that I should have jumped on something I wasn't thinking, but just to kind of go back on a question of what you need to do as a rookie when you're next to a senior officer. Don't look to impress them, look to learn. You're an apprentice when you come into this profession, so play the role of an apprentice. I wanted to get that out, but the reason why I recommend Mastery and also touching on Simon Sinek's book on the why is because you have to have a purpose in this profession. You have to find what it is, why you do what you do. And I think Robert Greene would say a life task, so in this profession, we all have our why, that internal motivation, it gets us through the rockiest of times. So I think if you find the why and it connects to your value, or you as a trainer can connect that person to that why, connect that profession, why you're in this profession to, that why for that person, it can hold a lot of weight. It really could, because I like what Connie said, the ability to help people or have an impact on this profession. That's very powerful. Usually the why for people usually connects in our ability to serve others, what we can do to help others. So if you're able to find that connection, like Connie said, specifically if it's helping it, giving good advice to an inmate, remember, when we say help inmates, it's really to help inmates help themselves. Let's not let's not misinterpret what we're saying here. Help inmates help themselves, help offenders help themselves. And you can give them these expectations that can carry a lot of value, not just for yourself, but for the inmate as well. Or again, as you start to move up and you start grabbing leadership positions or higher position, let's just say higher positions, because you could still be a leader even as a frontline professional. But if you could still grab higher positions, then your impact will be on the staff, the people that you now are support for, so I believe if you can connect to that why and find value in what you're able to provide to others, that definitely gives you enough to carry yourself definitely with your chest out and a lot of pride. Gary, what's your thoughts on that to instill pride?
Well, I always thought as a trainer, advisor, and counselor, which is what any senior officer is, you want to teach them properly, but you also want to tell them when they did something right. Give them that positive reinforcement. Let them know they did something right, just as much as you have to tell them when they did something wrong. If you're new and you do something wrong, we're not scolding you. We're telling you how to change your method and do the task correctly. But always give positive reinforcement when it's warranted. Let them know you're available for them, and let them know that we are here doing a job that many people cannot do. Very few people can do this job. We're standing between the criminals and society with just our bare hands and a radio and maybe some mace if we're lucky. So we are very important in the criminal justice chain, because we are preventing these people from getting out on the street, escaping and harming people. So whatever the case may be, my wife said, I like the corrections career because of the camaraderie. We felt like a family. And my most important thing that I thought was trust between us, the officers, and helping each other. And then she said, the other thing I like the most about it is if I could do one thing positive or one thing a day that makes an inmate do something positive for him or herself, not for the officer, for the inmate, she said that made my day too. And that's why I did this career. So she had 35 years of service and is very proud of it and has a lot of pride about the corrections career.
Yeah, guys, believe it or not, guys, a lot of our interactions are going to be with the inmate population. So obviously, if there's a chance to create that impact, I mean, I know a lot of people that retired that went back and, when they go to kind of look back at what they've done, they've said like, I remember dealing with this one inmate and then just taking the inmate aside, having that dialogue and seeing the inmate make that effort to change. And I wish more people knew about that, because we're judged as Neanderthals, but they don't realize, I mean, we get one negative interaction, it gets posted on the news and the news, absorbs it. But what do we have? Millions of interactions that are positive that no one sees. And if people only knew the truth, the fact that there are inmates that even look to us as role models because they see something and then we give them that expectation. They do their best to reach that expectation. Hey, Russ, I know you're big on pride. What would you do?
So, the thing that always really stands out to me, and, Gary really touched on this some, is the fact that we do a really hard job. And that really hard job is, coupled to all these challenges that I always talk about. And for me, the part of it that I was able to take the most pride in was overcoming those challenges and turning situations that started out as dangerous and uncertain and lending certainty to them and taking the danger out in one way or another. That's one of the reasons why we need good people in this profession. We need those people that can go in and sort things out and be able to, do it in that just fashion. And we need the kind of people that are going to call whatever positive attention that we can eke out of things, which is almost none. It's almost impossible to get the good out there reported. But in spite of whether we get good reports or bad reports out there, it's a necessary job, right? We're all that stands between those gates and, really, evil prospects. Now, can some of those evil prospects change? Yeah, they can. But the most important thing is that while they're there, that we keep them there. And, I just got to the point where, I would tell these, these youngsters, these new boots and stuff, you know what, look to get everything you can for your self-worth out of this, and don't worry about what other people are going to tell you. If you are the guy or gal that can stand there and be happy with what the man or woman in the mirror sees and know that you did a good job, I mean, that's fantastic. Because so, like Gary said, there's very few people that can go there and do this job. You know what? There's even less that can do this job well. And there's even fewer that can do this job great. So whatever iteration that you can bring of yourself to that, to get to that greatness, man, I'll tell you what, you really stand to get that, that self-satisfaction, even though the world is never going to know your name, probably.
Guys, we made it to our last question. This is the last question. It comes from Corey Bedard. And then, guys, while we answer this last question, if you found value in what we did, let us know, because the feedback helps us. And if you guys don't mind liking and sharing the content, trying to help us get to that 20,000 mark. Also, we will probably start doing live streams more often. I'm actually thinking about even during some of these live streams to have a Zoom audience. So we may even do somewhere. I got this idea from something that Connie does with her church. I got a chance to watch Connie's book became a play. The Cage Was a Cocoon. It was like, it was a play that was taken from the book. And it was great to see that they had an audience within the Zoom conference that was interactive. And I thought that would be great. So we get to meet the people that are asking the questions. But I know a lot of people don't want to be on camera. So that's something we'll have to test out first. Maybe announce that we're doing a show, and then a month later we'll give you, whoever wants to get involved will email you the link, and then we'll get it from there. But we may start doing this a little bit more if we can build up the audience. I would like to see if we can get this audience to around 50. But unfortunately, I can't trust YouTube to send out the alerts because we're not a channel that's ran by former inmates. We're a channel that tells the truth. So these are just the people that are very invested in what we do. So guys, you have no idea how much we appreciate your time and just, helping us make this content better by these great questions that you're asking. All right. So the last question from today, for today. Oh, okay. Wait, real quick, guys. Just some comments. Can we get advance notice so we could tell our coworkers? Yeah, you can, Poppy. What we'll start doing is, if Connie doesn't mind, I know she's busy, maybe Connie could help us maybe put something like a picture or something together about a week beforehand, and I'll post it on all our venues, and then we'll put it out there, and then we'll go live, and we'll get to all the questions we can, and we'll, run at the distance. Because again, guys, we learn in the process. Sometimes we learn a lot from each other too. Good question. Ralph said, is there a reason why you haven't monetized the channel? Good eye. Yes, because when I monetize it, YouTube takes more control of it. They start pulling down a lot of my content because they'll say it doesn't go along with the sponsors. That's why you see that I have my sponsors. I have a commercial inside my videos. The reason why I do that is because when I did monetize briefly on YouTube, I would get these things. I have to pull down this video because the sponsor here, the sponsor there, just didn't work for me. The material is more important than the money. So I got people that believed in the message. The American Military University, Guardian RFID. I know some people think, again, these commercials, they're only done once. They're done at the beginning. And because they support what we do, we could at least give them the 30 seconds to show that respect. But yes, maybe Connie can help us with that. She's very good with creating these just beautiful pictures. But here's the last question. Corey, I'm going to get to your question right now. Thank you for asking. It's a great question. We'll start with, I think, Gary first this time. I think this is a great question. As a new officer, great question to end on. As a new officer with a field training officer, what should I do if the field training officer is not doing his job or her job correctly, not doing the checks and tours on time, and is more worried about Facebook?
Wow, that's come up. I've heard people say, my training officer. Look, we're all adults, right? My training officer sucks. I'm not learning anything from this guy or girl. Man, that is a bad thing to hear. And I'm going to tell you, you deserve the best training you can get. And you deserve officers that are assigned to you with positive attitude, a go-get-em attitude, that and have knowledge of the job, and not, you ever have a training officer just bet down in their phone? If you can have phones, some places can, some can't. And you're thinking, you're supposed to be training me, and all you're doing there is sitting all day, you know, playing on your phone or on Facebook or logging in on the control room computer playing games. Let me tell you, this is a situation, again, like the rumor, you know, where somebody's talking about you. Tell your trainer, it's a tough spot. I know you're brand new. You're trying to make your probation year, so you're probably afraid to say anything. Say, hey, I need to know about this. Can we start doing this? Can you start showing me this? Can you start teaching me this? And if you're still getting nothing done and no training done, wow, it's a tough spot, I know, because you're brand new. But if you're a big mouth like me and hard-headed, Anthony knows I'm a hard-headed son of a gun. But anyway, if you're hard-headed, I'm going to tell somebody I'm not getting trained over here. You know, they're not training me. Somebody do something, or give me another trainer. Request to speak, be polite about it. You know, don't call the officer or anything. Just, I'd love to get another trainer. Can I please get me another trainer? I don't feel I'm learning anything here. Now, good management will look at that and say, you know, and probably they hadn't heard that before. We've had trainers lose their training stripes and when I moved from state to the county, we had trainers, you got a training stripe. We've had them lose that training stripe for not doing their job. They get paid extra here in the county, extra every week. They turn in your reports of how you're coming along and what they trained you on, and they get like $85 a week extra. So they need to earn that money, folks. Make them earn their money, but do it professionally, tactfully, and politely.
Yeah, now in this case here, Corey mentioned that they're using the work computer. Before I get to Connie, I just want to mention when it comes to this question here, I understand where it's tough, Corey, because the field training officer is supposed to be your resource. That's supposed to be the first person you go to when you have a problem. You know, in some cases, let's say that a senior officer is an issue, I may go to my field training officer. I remember being in my book, the inmate manipulation book, the very first story I tell is about a supervisor that embarrassed me in the unit. And the next day, when I found out I had that same unit, the first person I wanted to call was my field training officer. Because again, they're supposed to help you adapt to the facility. So when that person becomes the issue, when that person becomes the conflict, it's tough. I mean, Connie, you can see where that's tough, correct?
Of course. I mean, that's supposed to be your go-to person, right? And so what happens when your go-to is not available, right? But not even not available because they're busy doing work, but busy doing things that have nothing to do with work. I mean, I think one of the big things here is not even so much just that you can't go to that person, but it's also the respect you lose for that person along the way, right? Like, which very early on in the career that's happening, which is a shame, right? So for me, I just feel that when you can't go to your go-to, like, I mean, when you're new, it's hard, right? And can you really establish multiple go-tos? I know we had we did a show not too long ago where we talked about, you know, if you start your career actually building a network, right? And understanding the resources and the people around you and what people around you, what their roles are, you know, that may be something that's helpful to you so that when that one person that you would like to be able to go to, that you should be able to go to, isn't available or isn't attentive, you know, you actually do have other options.
Right. And hold on. Hey, Russ, what's your thoughts on that, Russ?
Okay, so for the most part, with regard to this particular FTO, you're stuck and you're saddled with that part, right? Because the chances of you getting out and beyond it and not people blaming you for bringing it up, it's probably not worth the effort that that's behind doing that. There is a way around it though. And this is the piece of advice that I used to give out before there was any such thing as FTOs, and still a lot of places don't have FTOs. Wherever you go, whichever institution you're at, ask around. There's going to be some guy or some gal that's going to know about handcuffing. There's going to be somebody that knows about gangs. There's going to be somebody that knows about firearms. There's going to be somebody that knows about use of force or report writing or contraband interdiction or this and that. Get with those people, right? And pick their brains for everything you're worth, and then make yourself into a self-styled expert on as many things as you can, right? You're going to have 2, 3, 4 things maybe that float your boat. Maybe it's, gangs or contraband interdiction or report, whatever it is, right? And after having picked those people's brains and going back to them time and time again, what do you need that FTO for?
I agree. I'm actually going back, like, obviously right now, I don't know if you guys know, I'm in the admin level. So some of the first things I always think about is liability. So as a rookie, and I'm following this FTO, and they're cutting, they're taking corners or they're whatever, making shortcuts, not doing security checks and all that other stuff, I have a concern. My concern right now is that this person is not doing their job. They're not, maintaining safety and security. So here's how I would do it though. At first, I would probably approach them with a question to let them know I'm not stupid. And I noticed that they're not doing certain things. Like, hey, I was wondering why you didn't check this certain area. I was reading policy, and policy says that these are areas that you have to check. Because I know when we're rookies, we get absorbed with a lot of policy. And I would recommend that you read policies first and then check out the practices of the officers. Do not think that the practices are policy. Trust me, because you're going to get trained by a lot of different officers who have a lot of different ways, and none of it's reflective of policy. So what winds up happening here is if you wind up doing something that's a practice, you won't be able to defend it. So what I would do honestly is get an understanding of the policy before you're being trained by this officer. And if you feel that they're doing something that's not reflective of policy, but you don't want to be aggressive in your approach, ask them a very informed question. Hey, how come you didn't check this today? I noticed in policy it says that. I mean, is that something you have to do? Or now here's how I'm thinking the FTO will react to that. I believe the FTO would, I would like to think they're going to be a little concerned that that if they're not doing it. And I think that would make them step up their game, because the last thing they want is for you to go back and tell someone that they're not doing their job. And the reason why I'm also telling you, if this behavior, if the person continues to do that, again, from a management perspective, look at this, guys. It's hard because I don't want you to burn a bridge the first day, but they're not doing their job. So they're being complacent. They're not doing the property security checks. So does that mean that they have respect for their family behind the wall? Just out of curiosity, I would think not. And if you were to say something, me as an officer, would be thinking, well, thank you for doing that, because I thought that this person was doing their job. So that person that's all worried about Facebook and not worried about, doing their security checks, what's that say about that person? He could give 2 shits about the family that's around them. So, make it known. But again, not aggressively. I see Gary has a comment on that. Go ahead, Gary.
I just want to say one thing that's very important. When the training is over, your FTO is going to sign that they trained you in this area. Now, if you sign there, it's over. You've just signed saying they trained you in that area. Now that goes in the records. Now you say you've been trained, and then you get out to the real world and you don't know what to do. I'm telling you, I'm not signing that thing if I didn't get trained in that area, because that's putting me in bad position. And it's actually putting the agency in a bad position. So I'm not signing it. And that's how we had a couple of trainers lose their stripes, because somebody said, I'm not signing that. You never trained me in that area. And self-teaching is great, but the problem is a lot of people don't have all the knowledge on where to go and everything to do to get this self-training. You need to put them on the spot. That's all I'm saying. And don't sign if you weren't trained there.
Yeah, you know what? I see where Corey said he goes, I don't know specifically what he tried, but ultimately, Corey, I'm going to say this. If this person is not doing their job, I'm going to go as far as saying it's your duty to report it then. It becomes your duty now to report it. Only because you said specifically that they're not doing some of their security checks. They're not doing some of their security checks. So I'm going to tell you something. If that's something that you notice and you don't report it, you could also be held responsible. So I'm going to go ahead and make that your duty to report that. I think that's 100% now becomes your duty. All right. So I guess that's the last question. I think, Connie, you did answer that one, right? You were the first one. Just want to make sure because hey, but Corey, real quick before you go, I know we gave you a few solutions there, and I'm sure some of them are tougher than others. But this is a very important concern. So hopefully you know, if you have to step it up, you know, I've been in a situation before similar to that. And at the end, people will know that, you know, they're going to come up to you and appreciate what you've done. Maybe not everyone, but there are going to be some that seen the exact same thing, because I'm going to tell you something. If this person doesn't know you and they're doing it in front of you, they're also doing it in front of a lot of other people, and no one has stepped up. Come on. I mean, at that point, that's ridiculous. Hey, Gary, anything you'd like to say in closing?
I just want to say thank you to all the folks that called in. Thank you for your questions. Be safe, and thank you for your service, and God bless. And for those of you brand new folks that called in, take pride in the job, and thank you for joining the corrections family. And I wish you the very best.
Yeah, guys, by the way, the panel here will talk to your facility too if you guys want. We don't charge anything. I know we're speaking at a conference in Arizona. I think it's Arizona. Everything's done through virtual. So if you guys ever, you know, if you have some recruits or something and you want to have panel discussions where they could ask us questions, you know, just email us. And I'm sure we can get the panel through virtual, because now that's virtual, and we'd be more than honored, because I know you guys use our stuff anyway. So if there's any questions about the videos that we do, or maybe even, I know a lot of people just say thank you. I mean, we would love to maybe witness a graduation, and, you know, from some of the recruits that have used these videos. I get pictures all the time of you know, people actually saying thanking me, and then showing me in uniform. I have an officer from Canada that on his first day, he was given a badge. A patch. He was given a patch on his graduation day. And there's a picture of him being given the patch from whoever their head of corrections is. He gave me that patch because he said, this is for you, because your videos helped me get this. It was just a tremendous, I did a video on it. So that would be great for us to take part of that, because it's great. The value comes from what we're able to see. Like if we put something out there and to see that you guys taking the advice and you're successful. I mean, how amazing is that? Hey, Russ, you have anything you'd like to say in closing?
Absolutely. I just want to say thanks everyone for coming out here and listening to us talk about this stuff. And, you know, and I mean this honestly, it's an honor just to get to, you know, field these questions and stuff, because I know each and every one of us, I mean, I know everyone here, Gary and Connie and Anthony, and we really do just want to be of help. We want to be of service. We want to, you know, try and better corrections in any little way we can. And so we'll do this again, and keep on looking for the next videos that we've got coming out. It's a fun ride, and I love it.
Yeah, guys, you guys sent us a few questions right now that I think that we could revisit or I believe I like the pride, the question about the pride. I thought that was good. I think we could do a topic on that. I think Russ wants to do a whole 4 or 5 hour dialogue on Augustus's question. Sorry, just messing around. Hey, Connie, anything you like to say in closing?
Man, listen, I just want to say you guys have made my first experience a good one. It was great to have so many questions and so much engagement. I have to give a shout out to Maria. Maria from Australia sent me a message and asked me if I could talk her through her going to start her first day. And the fact that we arranged to have this Google call, which was, I guess, 7 o'clock my time. I don't even know what time it was in Australia, but she had her notes, she had her questions. It was just like, those are the moments that I think that we live for, because then you realize just how much we have to give. And so anybody new starting, just know, like, you're going to get there. Just hang in there, right? And any of us old timers that's there, like, just give a word, right? Share your wisdom. You know, it doesn't take too much to just steer someone in the right direction.
Yeah, guys. And today what motivated the dialogue was the intelligent questions that were asked. And sometimes they're challenging and we have fun with that, you know? So, again, guys, thanks for being part of this. And hopefully we could do more, build up that audience and just get as much info out there as possible, both from us and from the community. So after each show, you have more informed people going right back into those facilities with knowledge that may one day save their lives, the lives of a peer, lives of an inmate, whatever it is, but it'll be information used for a good cause. As always, guys, stay safe. Now I got to figure out how to end this, so bear with me. There it is. All right, guys. Love you guys. Stay safe.